Commander Jake Harrison stood at the observation deck of Kepler Station, watching the stars through the thick glass. The view never got old, even after 5 years of running this place. 50,000 people called this station home, making it the biggest human settlement outside of Earth's solar system. They came here to mine xeridium crystals, the special rocks that made faster-than-light travel possible. Jake was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. At 45, he had seen enough space battles to know when trouble was coming. Today felt different. The communication channels had been buzzing with bad news for weeks. Lieutenant Amy Carter rushed into the observation deck, her face pale with worry. She was 28 years old and had been the station's communication officer for 3 years. Her brown hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, and her uniform showed the stress of long hours at her post. "Commander, we're getting more distress calls," Amy said, holding a datapad in her shaking hands. 3 more colonies went dark in the past 6 hours. That makes 12 this week. Jake turned away from the stars and looked at the young officer. He had been expecting this news, but it still hit him like a punch to the gut. The attacks were getting closer to Earth, and that meant they were getting closer to Kepler Station, too. "Show me the reports," Jake said, taking the datapad from Amy's hands. The screen showed a map of human space with red marks indicating destroyed colonies. Each red mark represented thousands of dead people. The pattern was clear. Something was moving through human territory like a plague, destroying everything in its path. "Sir, the survivors all say the same thing," Amy continued. "Huge ships, bigger than anything we've ever built. They don't try to communicate. They just attack and destroy everything." Jake had heard these reports before, but seeing them all together made his blood run cold. The attacks were systematic, planned. This wasn't random raiders or pirates. This was an organized military force with one goal: wiping out humanity. Dr. Paul Martinez walked into the observation deck, carrying a metal case under his arm. Paul was the station's expert on alien technology, a thin man in his 30s with thick glasses and nervous habits. He spent most of his time in the research labs, studying anything they could get their hands on from other species. "Commander, I need to show you something," Paul said, setting his case on the nearby table. "I've been studying the wreckage from the Titan colony attack." Jake knew about Titan colony. It had been one of the first settlements to be destroyed, but they managed to recover some debris from the attacking ships. The metal was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Paul opened his case and pulled out a piece of twisted black metal. It looked ordinary, but Jake knew it was anything but normal. "This is part of their hull armor," Paul explained. "I've been running tests for 2 weeks. Our best weapons barely scratch it. The energy readings show they use some kind of quantum shielding that makes their ships almost impossible to destroy." Amy looked at the metal piece with fear in her eyes. "How do we fight something we can't hurt?" Jake picked up the metal and felt its weight. It was lighter than it looked, but somehow felt dangerous, like holding a piece of death itself. "What else did you find?" Jake asked. Paul pushed his glasses up his nose, a habit he had when he was nervous. "The attack patterns show they know exactly where our colonies are. They're not searching, they know where to find us. Someone or something has been watching us for a long time." The 3 humans stood in silence, looking at the piece of alien metal. Outside the observation deck, the stars continued to shine, but they no longer seemed peaceful. Somewhere out there, an enemy was moving toward them with overwhelming force. Amy's communication device suddenly buzzed with an incoming message. She looked at the screen, and her face went white. "Commander, we're getting a priority transmission from Earth Defense Command," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake knew what this meant. Earth Defense Command only sent priority transmissions when the situation was desperate. "Put it through to the main communication center," Jake ordered. "All senior staff need to hear this." The 3 of them hurried through the station's corridors. Kepler Station was massive, with living areas, mining facilities, and defense systems spread across multiple levels. People went about their daily work, not knowing that their entire way of life was about to change. In the communications center, the large screen showed Admiral Rebecca Stone from Earth Defense Command. Jake had served under her years ago and knew she was not easily scared. But today her face showed fear that made Jake's stomach turn. "All station commanders, this is Admiral Stone with emergency orders," the Admiral began. "The alien force we've been tracking has been identified as the Hegemony, an alliance of 3 species that considers humanity a threat to galactic peace. They have declared total war on our species." Jake felt the blood drain from his face. Total war meant no prisoners, no negotiations, no surrender. It meant extinction. Intelligence reports indicate the Hegemony fleet consists of over 3,000 ships, each one larger and more powerful than our biggest vessels. Admiral Stone continued. "They are moving through human space systematically, destroying every settlement they encounter." Amy grabbed Jake's arm without thinking. Paul dropped his datapad and it clattered on the floor. "All outer colonies are ordered to begin immediate evacuation," the Admiral said. "However, military analysis suggests most evacuation ships will not reach safety before the Hegemony arrives. Station commanders have discretion to determine the best course of action for their people." The transmission ended, leaving the communication center in total silence. Jake looked around at his staff, young men and women who had signed up to explore space and mine crystals, not to fight an impossible war. "Sir, what are our orders?" asked Lieutenant Tom Baker, the station's security chief. Jake thought about the 50,000 people on his station. They had families, children, dreams for the future. How could he tell them that their future had just been canceled by an alien force they couldn't fight? "Begin evacuation procedures immediately," Jake said. "Get every civilian on the escape pods and ships. Send them toward Earth at maximum speed." "What about the military personnel?" Tom asked. Jake looked out at the stars again, knowing that somewhere, in that darkness, death was coming for them all. "We stay and buy them time," Jake said. "Every minute we delay the enemy is another minute for our people to reach safety." Amy began working at her communication station, sending out evacuation orders. Paul gathered his research, knowing it might be humanity's only hope of finding a weakness in the alien ships. Over the next few hours, Kepler Station became a scene of controlled panic. Families said goodbye to each other, not knowing if they would ever meet again. Children cried as they were separated from parents who had to stay behind. The escape pods launched one by one, carrying hope toward an uncertain future. Jake watched the last civilian transport leave the station. Now only 500 military personnel remained, facing an enemy that had already destroyed 12 colonies without losing a single ship. "Commander, sensors are picking up something," Amy called out from her station. "Multiple contacts coming out of hyperspace at the edge of the system." Jake felt his heart stop. They had run out of time. "How many ships?" he asked. Amy looked at her screens and her voice broke. 57 contacts, sir. All of them bigger than anything in our database. They're heading straight for us." Jake activated the station's defense systems, knowing they would do little good against such overwhelming force. But they would fight anyway because that's what humans did. They fought even when they couldn't win. "Send a message to Earth," Jake ordered. "Tell them Kepler Station has fallen. Tell them they're coming. Tell them God help us all." The alien ships appeared on the main screen, dark shapes against the stars that looked like death itself. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin, and it would start with the fall of Kepler Station. 6 months had passed since the fall of Kepler Station. The news of its destruction reached Earth like a cold wind, bringing fear to every human in the solar system. The alien force called the Hegemony was coming, and everyone knew it meant the end of everything. Admiral Lisa Brooks stood on the bridge of the UNS Liberty, humanity's largest warship. She was 52 years old with silver hair and steel blue eyes that had seen too many battles. Around her, the combined defense fleet of Earth stretched as far as the eye could see. 2,000 ships of every size and type floated in formation, ready for the fight of their lives. Lisa had spent her entire career preparing for war, but never a war like this. The reports from the outer colonies painted a picture of an enemy that could not be beaten. Ships the size of moons, weapons that could crack planets, and technology that made human defenses look like toys. Captain Ben Taylor sat in the cockpit of his fighter, the Lucky Strike. He was 34 years old and had been flying combat missions for 12 years. His hands shook slightly as he checked his weapon systems one more time. Behind him, 300 other fighters waited for the order to launch. Ben thought about his wife Kate, who was working in the command center of the Liberty. They had been married for 8 years and had planned to retire to a quiet colony after this tour of duty. Now they might not live to see another day together. Kate Taylor worked at her tactical station, analyzing enemy formations and battle plans. She was 31 years old with dark hair and quick hands that moved across her control screens like a pianist playing a deadly song. Her job was to find weaknesses in the enemy fleet and coordinate the human attack. Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up hyperspace signatures, Kate called out across the bridge. Multiple contacts coming in from the outer system. Lisa felt her stomach drop. After months of waiting and preparing, the moment had finally arrived. The hegemony fleet was here. How many ships? Lisa asked. Kate looked at her screens and her face went pale. Over 3,000 contacts, Admiral. They're bigger than our intelligence report suggested. Lisa activated the fleet communication system. Her voice would now reach every human ship in the defense fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Brooks. The enemy fleet has arrived in our system. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the survival of our species. Every man and woman in this fleet volunteered to be here. We knew this day would come, and we are ready. The hegemony ships began to appear on the main screens. They were massive black shapes that seemed to eat the light around them. The smallest enemy ship was 3 times larger than the Liberty. The biggest ones looked like moving asteroids with weapons. Captain Ben Taylor received the launch order and fired up his fighter's engines. Around him, hundreds of other fighters launched from carrier ships throughout the fleet. They looked like a swarm of angry insects next to the massive alien vessels. All fighter squadrons. This is Captain Taylor, Ben said over the communication system. We're going to hit their forward ships with everything we have. Remember your training and watch each other's backs. The battle began in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Human commanders had hoped to use the rocky debris as cover, but the alien ships had other plans. The hegemony vessels were equipped with gravity weapons that turned the asteroids into massive projectiles. Lisa watched in horror as entire squadrons of human fighters were crushed by rocks the size of buildings. The aliens were using the asteroid belt as a weapon against the human fleet. All ships pull back from the asteroid field, Lisa ordered. We're fighting on their terms here. But the hegemony fleet kept coming. Their ships moved through space, like sharks through water, graceful and deadly. Energy beams lanced out from their weapons, cutting through human ships like knives through paper. Colonel Ray Foster commanded the orbital defense platforms around Earth. He was 48 years old and had spent 25 years preparing Earth's defenses. His daughter Nancy worked on Defense Platform 7, and he could see her station on his tactical display. All platforms, target the lead ships, Ray ordered. Concentrate fire on their forward vessels. The defense platforms opened fire with everything they had. Missiles, energy beams, and kinetic weapons all struck the alien ships. For a moment, Ray felt hope as explosions bloomed across the enemy hulls. But when the smoke cleared, the alien ships were undamaged. Their quantum shields had absorbed every attack without even flickering. Nancy Foster watched from her platform as the human fleet fought desperately against impossible odds. She was 26 years old and had never seen real combat before today. The sight of human ships being destroyed one after another made her sick to her stomach. "Dad, our weapons aren't working," Nancy said over the communication link to her father. "Nothing we're firing is getting through their shields." Ray Foster felt his heart break as he watched the defense platforms fall one by one. Each platform that died took hundreds of brave men and women with it. His daughter's platform was still fighting, but he knew it was only a matter of time. The hegemony fleet pushed through the human defenses like they were made of paper. Admiral Brooks watched her carefully planned battle formations crumble as alien ships destroyed her vessels faster than she could count them. "Admiral, we've lost 60% of the fleet," Kate reported, her voice barely steady. The enemy hasn't lost a single ship. Lisa made the hardest decision of her military career. If conventional weapons couldn't hurt the alien ships, maybe ramming attacks could at least slow them down. All ships, this is Admiral Brooks, she said over the fleet communication system. Ramming speed. We're going to ram these ships and see if we can crack their hulls. Captain Ben Taylor heard the order and felt his blood turn cold. Ramming speed meant suicide attacks. But if it gave Earth a few more minutes, it was worth it. You heard the Admiral, Ben said to his squadron. We're going in hard and fast. It's been an honor flying with all of you. Human ships throughout the fleet turned toward the alien vessels and pushed their engines to maximum power. The UNS Defender was the first to ram an enemy ship, its hull cracking against the alien vessel's shields. The explosion was massive, but when it cleared, the alien ship was barely scratched. Kate Taylor watched her husband's fighter squadron dive toward an alien cruiser. She wanted to call out to him, to tell him she loved him, but she knew he couldn't hear her over the battle noise. Ben, come home to me, she whispered, tears running down her face. The ramming attacks continued as human ships sacrificed themselves against the alien fleet. Admiral Brooks watched good people die for every second they bought Earth. The alien ships kept coming, their formations barely disrupted by the desperate human attacks. Defense Platform 7, where Nancy Foster worked, took a direct hit from an alien energy beam. The explosion tore the platform apart, and Ray Foster watched his daughter die on his tactical display. Nancy, Ray whispered, his voice broken. The hegemony fleet pushed past the human defenses and entered Earth's atmosphere. Their massive ships cast shadows over entire cities as they prepared to begin the final destruction of humanity. Admiral Lisa Brooks stood on the bridge of the Liberty as alien ships surrounded her flagship. Her fleet was gone, her people were dead, and Earth was about to fall. All remaining ships, this is Admiral Brooks, she said over the communication system. Send out distress calls to any human forces in deep space. Tell them Earth has fallen. Tell them we fought to the end. The Liberty shook as alien weapons struck its hull. Lisa looked out at the beautiful blue planet below and thought about all the people who would die in the next few hours. Kate, send one final message, Lisa ordered. Any human forces out there, Earth needs help. We're running out of time. Kate Taylor sent the message into deep space, not knowing if anyone would hear it. The alien ships continued their attack on the remaining human vessels. As the Liberty's hull began to crack under enemy fire, Lisa Brooks made her peace with death. Humanity had fought bravely, but it wasn't enough. The stars would belong to the hegemony now. But somewhere in the darkness of space, beyond the reach of the battle, something stirred. Ancient ships that had been sleeping for decades began to wake up. The distress call from Earth had reached ears that had been waiting for this moment. The battle for Earth was lost, but the war for humanity's survival was far from over. In the darkest corner of space, far beyond where any human had ever traveled, 12 ships floated in silence. They had been drifting here for 30 years, their crews sleeping in frozen chambers, waiting for a signal that might never come. The UN's Vengeance was the largest of these ships, and Commander Alex Stone was its captain. He was 43 years old when he went to sleep 3 decades ago. Now he was waking up to a universe that had changed forever. Alex opened his eyes slowly as the cryogenic chamber released him. His body felt stiff and cold, but his mind was sharp. The awakening process meant only one thing. The automated systems had detected something important enough to wake the crew. Chief Engineer Maya Brooks was the first person Alex saw when he stepped out of his chamber. She was 38 years old with short red hair and green eyes that showed both intelligence and sadness. Maya was Admiral Lisa Brooks' younger sister, though Alex didn't know what had happened to Lisa yet. "Commander, you need to see this," Maya said, helping Alex walk to the command center. His legs were still weak from the long sleep. The command center of the Vengeance looked like nothing else in the human fleet. The walls were covered with screens, showing information that would have been impossible to understand 30 years ago. This ship and the 11 others like it had been built using technology that most people thought was too dangerous to use. "What woke us up?" Alex asked, settling into his captain's chair. Maya activated the main screen and Alex felt his blood turn cold. The screen showed recordings of battles throughout human space, ships being destroyed, colonies burning, and finally the fall of Earth itself. The AI has been monitoring galactic communications while we slept, Maya explained. It recorded everything: the war, the defeats, the end of human civilization as we knew it. Alex watched his species being wiped out while he had been sleeping. The guilt hit him like a physical blow. While good people were dying to defend humanity, he and his crews had been floating in space like ghosts. "How long ago did Earth fall?" Alex asked. 6 months, sir," Maya replied. "The hegemony has occupied every major human world. Survivors estimate that less than 10% of our species is still alive." Alex stood up from his chair and walked to the main viewing screen. Outside, he could see the other 11 ships of the Ghost Fleet beginning to show signs of life. Running lights were coming on as their crews woke up from 3 decades of sleep. Captain Rick Shaw was the commander of the UNS Wraith, the fleet's stealth ship. He was a thin man with dark hair and quiet eyes who had always preferred working alone. His ship could become invisible to any known sensor, making it perfect for reconnaissance missions. Rick's first job after waking up was to scout the current situation. He took the Wraith to Earth's solar system, staying hidden while he observed what the hegemony had done to humanity's home. What he saw made him sick. Earth cities had been converted into processing centers where surviving humans were kept like cattle. The aliens were using people for biological experiments trying to understand human genetics and psychology. "Commander Stone, this is Captain Shaw," Rick said over the communication system. "I'm sending you visual records of Earth. You're not going to like what you see." Alex watched the recordings and felt anger burn in his chest like fire. The hegemony wasn't just occupying human worlds. They were torturing the survivors and treating them like laboratory animals. Dr. Susan Clark was the Ghost Fleet's chief scientist, a brilliant woman in her 40s who had helped design the experimental weapons on these ships. She had been studying the enemy while Alex and Rick were gathering intelligence. "Commander, I've been analyzing the hegemony ships from the battle." "Recordings," Susan said. "Their quantum shielding technology is impressive, but I think I found a weakness." Alex looked at the data Susan had compiled. The alien ships seemed invincible, but every technology had flaws if you knew where to look. "What did you find?" Alex asked. Susan pointed to energy readings from the enemy shields. "Their quantum barriers become unstable when exposed to chronoton particles. That's radiation created by time manipulation technology." Alex felt his heart rate increase. The Ghost Fleet ships carried temporal weapons, devices that could slow down or speed up time in small areas. These weapons had been considered too dangerous for regular military use, but they might be humanity's only hope now. Captain Joe Miller commanded the UNS Phoenix, which carried the most advanced temporal weapon in the fleet. Joe was a steady man in his 40s who had volunteered for the Ghost Fleet because he believed in taking risks to protect humanity. "Miller, I need you to test Susan's theory," Alex ordered. "Find a small hegemony patrol and see if our temporal weapons can break their shields." Joe took the Phoenix to Jupiter's moon system, where hegemony ships were mining resources from the gas giant. He found a single alien cruiser working alone, perfect for a test attack. The Phoenix approached the enemy ship while staying hidden behind Jupiter's radiation. When Joe activated the temporal weapon, time itself seemed to bend around the alien vessel. The hegemony ship's shields flickered and then collapsed completely. "Direct hit with plasma cannons," Joe reported as his conventional weapons tore through the now unprotected alien hull. "The enemy ship is destroyed. I repeat, we just killed a hegemony cruiser." For the first time since waking up, Alex smiled. They had found the key to victory, but it came with a terrible price. The temporal weapons could only be used a few times before they risked tearing holes in space itself. Captain Tom Wilson commanded the UNS Spectre, another ship equipped with experimental phase shift technology. His vessel could move between dimensions, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Tom was eager to start hitting back at the enemy. "Commander, request permission to begin strikes against hegemony supply lines," Tom said. "We can hit them where They don't expect it and disappear before they can respond. Alex thought about the request. 12 ships couldn't defeat 3,000, but they could make the enemy afraid. Fear was a weapon that humans understood very well. Permission granted, Alex said. All ships, we're going to start a campaign of terror against the hegemony. We're going to show them that humanity refuses to die quietly. The Ghost Fleet began its war against the hegemony with surgical strikes across occupied space. The UNS Spectre was the first to attack, materializing inside a supply depot on Mars and destroying everything before vanishing again. The psychological impact was immediate. Hegemony forces had believed all human military capability was destroyed. Suddenly, phantom ships were appearing from nowhere, striking without warning and disappearing like ghosts. News of the attack spread through underground human resistance networks. On occupied worlds, people who had given up hope began to believe again. The Ghost Fleet's actions proved that humanity was still fighting, still refusing to surrender. Maya Brooks worked day and night to keep the experimental systems running. The temporal weapons put enormous stress on the ship's engines, and one mistake could destroy them all. Alex, we can't keep this up forever, Maya warned. These weapons were never meant for extended combat. We need to find a way to strike a decisive blow before our ships fall apart. Alex knew Maya was right, but he also knew that giving up meant the end of humanity. Somewhere in occupied space, millions of people were depending on the Ghost Fleet to save them. We'll find a way, Alex said. We have to. There's no one else left to do it. As reports of Ghost Fleet victories reached the furthest corners of human space, something remarkable began to happen. Human crews who had been hiding since the invasion started coming out of the shadows. Ship captains who had thought they were the only survivors began forming into small fighting groups. The Ghost Fleet had become more than just 12 ships. They had become a symbol of human resistance. Their actions were inspiring hope in the darkest hour of human history. But the hegemony was not going to let these phantom attacks continue. They began accelerating their extermination protocols, planning to destroy every world that might harbor human survivors. The final battle was coming, and both sides knew it would decide the fate of humanity forever. The Ghost Fleet had been fighting for 3 months, striking at hegemony targets across human space like shadows in the night. Each victory brought more hope to the surviving humans, but Commander Alex Stone knew they were running out of time. Captain Tom Wilson stood on the bridge of the UNS Spectre as his ship prepared for another raid. They were targeting a hegemony weapons factory on the moon of Saturn, where the aliens were building new ships to replace the ones the Ghost Fleet had destroyed. Phase shift engines ready, reported Lieutenant Danny Green, the ship's chief engineer. Danny was 29 years old and had been working with experimental technology since he graduated from the academy. Tom activated the phase shift drive, and the Spectre moved between dimensions. One moment they were in normal space, the next, they were sliding through a reality where the laws of physics worked differently. It was a strange feeling that made most people sick, but Tom had gotten used to it over the years. The Spectre appeared inside the weapons factory, materializing in the middle of the alien production line. Tom's crew opened fire with everything they had, destroying equipment and materials before the enemy could react. 30 seconds until security responds, Tom called out to his crew. Make every shot count. The phase shift drive activated again, and the Spectre vanished just as hegemony security forces arrived. Behind them, they left a burning factory and confused aliens who couldn't understand how a human ship had appeared from nowhere. Meanwhile, Dr. Susan Clark worked in her laboratory aboard the UNS Vengeance, studying pieces of destroyed hegemony ships. She had been analyzing their technology for weeks, looking for more weaknesses they could exploit. Commander Stone, I think I found something important, Susan said over the communication system. Can you come to the lab? Alex found Susan staring at a piece of alien computer equipment. Her face showed the excitement of someone who had just solved a difficult puzzle. What did you discover? Alex asked. Susan pointed to the alien device. I've been studying their navigation systems. The hegemony ships don't just rely on their own sensors. They're connected to a central command network that tells them where to go and what to attack. Alex looked at the complex alien technology. Can we hack into their network? Better than that, Susan said with a smile. I think we can turn their own ships against each other. If we can access their command codes, we might be able to make them think other hegemony ships are human vessels. The idea was brilliant and dangerous. If it worked, the hegemony fleet would start attacking itself. If it failed, the aliens would know exactly where the Ghost Fleet was hiding. Captain Rick Shaw brought the UNS Wraith closer to a hegemony command ship near Jupiter. His stealth vessel was invisible to enemy sensors, making it perfect for planting the virus that Susan had created. Approaching the target, Rick reported to Commander Stone. Their shields are up, but I can phase through them using our dimensional technology. The Wraith slipped through the alien ship's quantum shields like a ghost walking through a wall. Rick's team placed small devices throughout the enemy vessel, each one designed to inject Susan's virus into the hegemony network. Devices planted, Rick said. Getting out of here before they notice anything. The Wraith vanished back into stealth mode, leaving behind a ticking time bomb in the form of computer code. Susan's virus would spread through the hegemony network, slowly corrupting their identification systems. Captain Joe Miller received orders to test the virus during the next battle. His ship, the UNS Phoenix, would engage a small hegemony patrol and see if the corrupted network would cause confusion among enemy forces. Joe found 3 hegemony cruisers patrolling near Mars. As soon as the Phoenix attacked with its temporal weapons, the alien ship's shields collapsed as expected. But then something unexpected happened. The 3 hegemony ships began firing at each other. Their corrupted network was telling them that the other ships were human vessels in disguise. Within minutes, all 3 alien cruisers had destroyed each other while Joe watched in amazement. Commander Stone, the virus worked better than we hoped, Joe reported. The enemy ships are attacking their own forces. We might have just found our path to victory. Alex felt hope rising in his chest for the first time since waking up. If the virus spread through the entire hegemony network, their massive fleet advantage would become meaningless. But the hegemony was not stupid. Their commanders quickly realized what was happening and began shutting down their network connections. The virus had caused significant damage, but it wouldn't win the war by itself. Throughout human space, the Ghost Fleet's actions were inspiring other survivors to fight back. Captain Lisa Park had been hiding in the asteroid belt with a damaged destroyer since Earth fell. When she heard about the Ghost Fleet's victories, she decided to come out of hiding. "This is Captain Park of the UNS Thunder," she transmitted on the emergency frequency, requesting permission to join the Ghost Fleet. Alex was surprised to receive the transmission. He had thought the Ghost Fleet was alone in their fight against the hegemony. "Captain Park, what's your status?" Alex replied. "We have 37 crew members and limited weapons," Lisa answered. "But we're tired of hiding while you do all the fighting." Over the next few weeks, more human ships emerged from hiding. Some were military vessels that had escaped the initial invasion. Others were civilian ships that had been converted into fighting vessels by desperate crews. Commander Alan Cross brought 5 patrol ships out of hiding near Neptune. Captain Betty White led a group of miners who had turned their industrial ships into weapons. Each new arrival made the human resistance stronger. But the hegemony was getting tired of the phantom attacks. Their high command decided to accelerate their extermination plan. If they couldn't stop the human ships, they would simply destroy every world that might harbor survivors. Admiral Vex Kalar was the hegemony commander in charge of the human sector. He was a cold creature from a species that valued efficiency, above all else. The continued human resistance was embarrassing him in front of his superiors. "Begin the final cleansing," Vex Kalar ordered his fleet commanders. "Destroy every planet in human space. Leave nothing that could support life." The order went out to hegemony fleets throughout the galaxy. Planet-killer weapons began charging, preparing to crack worlds apart and end any chance of human survival. Alex received intelligence reports about the hegemony's new plan from human resistance fighters on occupied worlds. The aliens were preparing to destroy everything rather than deal with continued attacks. "Commander, we're receiving distress calls from 12 different colonies," reported Communication Officer Lieutenant Sarah Adams. "The hegemony is moving planet-killer ships toward inhabited worlds." Alex realized that their hit-and-run tactics had pushed the enemy to desperation. The hegemony was willing to destroy entire solar systems to stop the human resistance. All Ghost Fleet ships, this is Commander Stone, Alex said over the fleet communication system. The enemy is preparing to destroy all remaining human worlds. We have maybe 48 hours before they start cracking planets. The time for Phantom strikes was over. If humanity was going to survive, the Ghost Fleet would have to face the entire hegemony armada in open battle. It seemed impossible, but Alex knew they had no choice. Captain Joe Miller prepared the Phoenix's temporal weapons for what might be their final battle. The exotic technology was showing signs of stress, but it might last long enough for one more fight. Maya Brooks worked frantically to prepare all 12 Ghost Fleet ships for the coming battle. Their experimental technology was breaking down after months of constant use, but she would keep it running through sheer determination. Alex, we're down to maybe 3 temporal weapon shots per ship, Maya reported. After that, we'll be fighting with conventional weapons against their quantum shields. Alex looked at the tactical display showing hegemony forces throughout the galaxy. 3,000 alien ships against 12 human vessels that were falling apart. The odds were impossible, but humans had never been good at accepting impossible odds. Send a message to every human ship in the galaxy, Alex ordered. Tell them we're going to Earth. Tell them this is humanity's last stand. Anyone who wants to fight for our species should meet us there. The message went out across human space, carried by hidden communication networks and resistance fighters. Soon, ships began moving toward Earth from every corner of the galaxy. The final battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. The call had gone out across the galaxy, and ships were coming to Earth from every corner of human space. Commander Alex Stone stood on the bridge of the UNS Vengeance, watching as vessels emerged from hyperspace around him. Some were military, ships that had survived the initial invasion. Others were converted civilian vessels crewed by miners, traders, and farmers who had decided to fight. Captain Ben Taylor was among those who answered the call. He had survived the fall of Earth by hiding his damaged fighter in an asteroid field. For months he had thought he was the only survivor from the original defense fleet. Now he flew alongside 200 other human ships ready for one final battle. Commander Stone, this is Captain Taylor, Ben said over the communication system. Reporting for duty with Fighter Squadron 7. We're ready to finish what we started. Alex counted the ships around him. 200 vessels against the entire hegemony armada that surrounded Earth. It was still an impossible fight, but at least humanity would face extinction together. Admiral Lisa Brooks was also among the survivors. She had escaped from a hegemony prison ship with the help of underground resistance fighters. Her hair was gray now and her face showed the strain of months in captivity, but her eyes still burned with determination. Alex, this is Lisa Brooks, she said as her rescued ship approached the fleet. I have intelligence on hegemony fleet positions and command structures. Their main command ship is the size of Earth's moon and carries enough firepower to destroy a solar system. Alex felt his heart sink as he looked at the tactical data Lisa provided. The hegemony had concentrated nearly their entire fleet around Earth. Massive ships floated in orbit around humanity's home world like dark vultures waiting for death. Colonel Ray Foster had also survived, leading a group of ground-based fighters who had been conducting guerrilla warfare on Earth's surface. His daughter Nancy was dead, killed defending the orbital platforms, but Ray continued fighting in her memory. Commander, we have resistance cells ready to strike at hegemony ground installations when the space battle begins, Ray reported from the planet's surface. We can't do much against their big ships, but we can keep their ground forces busy. The plan was simple because it had to be. The Ghost Fleet would lead the attack, using their temporal weapons to break through the hegemony's quantum shields. Once the enemy defenses were weakened, every human ship would charge forward in a desperate assault. Captain Rick Shaw took the UNS Wraith on one final reconnaissance mission. His stealth ship slipped through the enemy fleet, placing sensor beacons that would help coordinate the human attack. Commander, I'm seeing something interesting, Rick reported as he moved through the hegemony formation. Their command ship is protected by a special shield grid powered by 6 generator ships. If we can destroy those generators, the command ship will be vulnerable. Alex studied the tactical information Rick was sending. The hegemony command ship was indeed the key to their entire fleet. If it could be destroyed, the alien forces would lose coordination and become much easier to defeat. Dr. Susan Clark made a final adjustment to the temporal weapons aboard the Ghost Fleet ships. She knew these exotic devices were about to be pushed beyond their design limits, but humanity needed every advantage they could get. "Commander, I've modified the temporal weapons to create a resonance cascade," Susan explained. "If we can hit the hegemony shield generators at exactly the same time, the combined chronoton field should overload their entire defensive network." The modification was dangerous. If the timing was wrong, the temporal weapons could tear holes in space itself. But Alex knew they had no choice but to take the risk. Captain Joe Miller prepared the UNS Phoenix for what everyone knew would be a suicide mission. His ship would have to get close to the massive hegemony command vessel and overload its temporal core, creating a chronoton field large enough to strip the shields from dozens of enemy ships. "Alex, it's been an honor serving with you," Joe said, as he prepared for the final attack. "Tell my family that I died fighting for humanity's future." Alex wanted to find another way, but there wasn't time. The hegemony planet-killer weapons were almost ready to fire, and Earth would be cracked apart within hours. "All ships, this is Commander Stone," Alex announced to the entire human fleet. "Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the right of humanity to exist among the stars. Every person in this fleet volunteered to be here. We knew this day would come, and we are ready." The battle began when the Ghost Fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly above Earth's North Pole. To the billions of enslaved humans on the planet's surface, it looked like salvation had descended from the sky. The UNS Vengeance led the charge, its experimental weapons tearing through hegemony formations that had seemed invincible just months before. The temporal weapons created ripples in spacetime that made the alien ships visible as dark shadows against the stars. Captain Tom Wilson brought the UNS Spectre in close to one of the shield generator ships. His phase shift technology allowed him to materialize inside the alien vessel's hull, where his crew planted explosives before vanishing again. "Generator Ship 1 is down," Tom reported as the hegemony vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The other Ghost Fleet ships pressed their attacks against the remaining generator ships. Captain Rick Shaw used the Wraith stealth systems to get close enough to plant temporal bombs. Captain Miller prepared the Phoenix for its final mission, but the hegemony was fighting back with everything they had. Energy beams the size of skyscrapers lanced out from their massive ships, destroying human vessels faster than Alex could count them. Captain Ben Taylor led his fighter squadron in desperate attacks against hegemony cruisers. His wife Kate had died in the original battle for Earth, but her tactical plans were still guiding the human fleet's movements. "All fighters, concentrate on their weapon ports," Ben ordered, as his squadron dove toward an alien dreadnought. "We can't destroy these ships, but we can blind them." The human fighters swarmed around the massive hegemony vessels like angry insects, their small weapons picking away at sensor arrays and communication equipment. Many fighters were destroyed, but their sacrifice was slowing down the alien response. Admiral Lisa Brooks coordinated the attack from her command ship, using her knowledge of hegemony tactics to predict their movements. She had spent months in captivity studying her captors, and now that knowledge was humanity's weapon. "All ships, the enemy is repositioning to protect their command vessel," Lisa announced. "This is our chance to strike at the shield generators." The remaining Ghost Fleet ships launched their coordinated attack on the shield generator vessels. Temporal weapons fired simultaneously, creating a cascade of chronoton energy that rippled through space like a stone thrown into still water. Captain Joe Miller pushed the Phoenix's engines to maximum power as he dove toward the hegemony command ship. The massive alien vessel was larger than Earth's moon, its hull bristling with enough weapons to destroy entire fleets. "This is for humanity," Joe said as he activated the Phoenix's temporal core overload. The explosion was visible from every ship in the battle. The Phoenix disappeared in a flash of white light that bent space and time around it. When the light faded, the hegemony command ship's shields were gone. "All ships, attack the command vessel," Alex ordered as he saw the alien flagship suddenly vulnerable. "This is our chance." Every human ship in the fleet turned toward the massive enemy command ship. Weapons that had been useless against quantum shields now found their mark on the alien hull. Explosions bloomed across the surface of the vessel as human fire tore into its structure. Colonel Ray Foster watched from Earth's surface as the sky filled with fire. Hegemony ships were exploding above the planet, their debris falling like burning stars. "All resistance cells, begin the uprising," Ray ordered. "The sky belongs to humanity again." The Hegemony command ship split apart in an explosion that lit up the entire solar system. Without their central command, the alien fleet lost coordination and began fighting each other as Susan's virus spread through their remaining network connections. Alex stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as Hegemony ships retreated in chaos. Around him, the surviving human vessels cheered over the communication channels. "This is Commander Alex Stone of the Terran Ghost Fleet," he broadcast on all frequencies. "The battle was lost, but humanity has descended from the sky. We have returned, and we will never surrender. The stars belong to all who dare to dream among them." Earth was free, and humanity had survived its darkest hour. The Ghost Fleet, once forgotten and presumed lost, had become legend. Children born in the aftermath would grow up hearing tales of the 12 ships that saved the human race, and how they descended from the heavens when all hope seemed lost. The war was over, but humanity's journey to the stars was just beginning.